Cool.
Okay, all right. So, Jules, thank you for joining us today. So my first question really, because your story is a little bit different from some of the other teachers who teach in the studio who have gone through our yoga teacher training, but you found us a very different way. So can you tell us how you came to find us?
Absolutely. It was about, I would say nearly like about 16 months ago,
Yeah.
because I moved to England just 18 months ago as a yoga teacher, and I was trying to connect here to, yeah, the community and wanted to know how it works because I came from Lanzarote where everything worked so differently. So I started basically to Google yoga studios. And
Yeah.
one of the first one that came up was you guys. And before I even asked or even thought about working for you guys, I just thought, "Ooh, that looks nice, Soul Sanctuary. So I can find a place where I can go to." And basically, this is how it started. I took the 30 days, £30 offer. And I think in that time I had about 17 classes
I love that.
and really, really fell in love with just the energy in the studio and all the different teachers, all the different styles. And I think pretty quite in within this time, I said to my husband, "Oh, I would like to teach here." But it took me, I think, another month or so until I came of finally kind of
Yeah.
reached out to Mark and say, "Hi, by the way."
Yeah.
And yes, and then I think it started with a few workshops that we did,
That's right.
the breath work and the sun salutation. And yeah, at some point, I must have done something right because
Everything right. Yeah, I
and
remember because I wasn't there at the time because I had my little ones, but I remember Mark saying to me like, there's this lady called Jules. She's been a member, but she's already like such a huge part of the community. She knows everyone, everyone loves her. She's such a great fit for Soul Sanctuary. I know there's not really any space like on the schedule, but what can we do? And I was like, well, let's get her in, let's get a workshop on. And then when it's one of those things, you know what it's like when you've got the members at the studio, they really need to like love and trust and feel safe with the person that's teaching them. And I think that's what you feel at Soul Sanctuary. I think it's that like a real just trust that you're safe and you can just come as you are and it's just authentic.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
we just needed people to experience that from you to then be like, yeah, I want to come to her classes. And that's exactly what's happened, right?
Yeah. Basically, absolutely. And it was amazing. And yes, and then I started teaching, you
Yeah.
know?
And so what
Yeah.
style do you teach now, Jules?
Well, we agreed that I stick to what I guess I know best. It's the hatha. It's a little bit, I think, more like traditional approach to yoga where you don't kind of flow so much through the postures, where you get a little bit more as well of the build-up of a posture. But on the other hand, I think it's not too technical either, because I definitely as well want to invite the people to have the safe space to feel that they can be who they are without needing to compare, without having this pressure to perform or do a specific pose in a certain way, that we can listen to their body, if that makes sense.
Makes absolute sense. Is that because one of the questions I wanted to find out was how you came to yoga? And often we teach, don't we, from like a place of passion because that's what we needed. How did you come to yoga? What was that a similar story or?
Funny enough, I think it's about 20 years ago. It's quite a long while ago, back in Lanzarote, where I lived for about 20 years as well. Um, that I was just curious. For me, yoga was always a little bit kind of, I was skeptical because it was the typical kind of, you need to sit there like this and say all the day. I had the totally wrong picture. But then again, back in Lanzarote, where there were not many opportunities. But I found this one yoga teacher. She had a lovely flat and the studio was in her house on the rooftop overlooking the bay of the biggest beach in Lanzarote. So that was already kind of, I need to go there.
Yeah.
And I figured out, because back when I was younger, I did ballet, I did jazz dance. So from the body, like the flexibility I had, but so I went in there much more with this head of I need to perform, and I overdid so many of the postures. I mean, even she even pointed out, "Oh, look at Flexi Jules, look at her." And it took me quite a while before I understood that it's not about the performance. And so the postures are kind of, yeah, I was basically just looking over what she's doing and just trying to copy. I didn't get yet the body connection. But what then really hooked me was her shavasana. She always played 15 minutes on her piano. And I was lying there on the floor, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, most of the time basically just floating.
Mm.
And that was basically it. And for a few years, I only did that until I was pregnant. And I started as well Tai Chi and more yoga. And then I started to understand a little bit more as well about the body and things like that. And then I had a break, and it took me another, I would say, 5 years before I came back to yoga. And I think that was just after my dad died, that I somehow needed to find, yeah, a soul sanctuary. I needed to find a space for me. And I started unconsciously find this peace in gentle movements and meditation, sitting there staring at the sea, focusing on my breath. And then I started the yoga practice again, basically.
And so you did your teacher training, like where was that? How did that come about?
That was as well a thing. I first looked at teacher training when Lennox, he's now 8, when he was just after he was born. The only problem was on Lanzarote, there was none in-person yoga teacher training. There was one offered on another island, but it would have meant for me, like, every other weekend, travel back and forth for, I don't know, like 6 months. And I said, that's impossible.
Yeah.
So I needed to basically let it go. And someone just said, okay, let's trust life, things, stuff come. And yeah, stuff came. I was pregnant again with our second child. And after she was born, another friend, she contacted me and said, Jules, do you know that we tried to form a group to make a yoga teacher training here in Lanzarote? And I said, like, what? And I looked into it. It was a beautiful little school, or not quite as little as I thought. It's called Om Shanti in Spain. But if they had a group big enough, and big enough, it was only, I think, 10 people we needed to find, they would send a teacher to Lanzarote over the period of 10 months. And we would have like one intense weekend, and the rest would be we had lots of thick books to learn from. It was lots of theory, lots of philosophy. So it was kind of really dive deep into it. And yeah, this is how it happened. And the whole thing at the end took 2 years,
Yeah.
whole teacher training. But just before the end of the first year, COVID hit in.
Mm.
So there was lockdown, and especially we in Lanzarote, we really were not allowed even to go out. And this is when all of a sudden they said, okay, the second year will be online. And I said, like, what? Yoga online? Kind of, nah. Somehow it didn't feel right. And I had quite a difficult time, the idea of letting go of the part 2 of the teacher training to make it 500 hours. But I don't know how they did it because in less than a month, they built up a beautiful, huge platform. And honestly, the second year, even it was online, was so much more full of information. We had like 4 times active training, but active practice. We had one-to-one calls with the teachers. They had it all set up in modules where you could, for me, even good because it was all in Spanish, so I could even kind of review the videos and stop and translate everything. So it
Yeah.
was it was amazing.
It is amazing, and this is the thing I think is often when people are looking to do their teacher training, the question that they ask is, but how can you do that online? But it's amazing actually. I mean, they're right in the sense that there is nothing quite like an in-person contact. Like we can't swap one for the other. But what
Yeah.
I would say is the amount that you can get online is quite incredible in terms of connection, in terms of personal growth, spirituality. Like, you're right. We need to let go of, like, but it has to be this way. Because what I often find and what I say to people is, if you're in a position where you can do an in-person training, of course do it. But if it's a case of not doing a training at all, or doing an in-person training, most people will go, well, I can't make those dates, so then I can't do it. And I'm like, if you open your mind to the online, like it is magic. And the proof's in the pudding because, like with all trainings, but you can give people the same information. It's what somebody does and takes with it and how hard they work and how much they make use of those one-to-one calls that means that they come out of the training like wanting to teach or not. And it's okay not to teach. I'm sure some people on your course, like some people just do it for self-development, but you've come out a really strong teacher and it's that passion as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, even it was the same for me because when I started, I just wanted to get deeper into the knowledge of the postures because I've injured my shoulder by overdoing because as I am very flexible, it doesn't necessarily always is a good thing. So I overdid very often the postures. I had tendonitis, I think this is how you call it, in my shoulder, and I had lower back pain. And in the pregnancy, I kind of dislocated my hip, and I was really looking for my own benefits because I remembered how much I kind of healed and transformed in the time after my dad passed away. And I wanted somehow to integrate this more into my life. It was all going hand in hand as well with my husband, that we both have more this kind of holistic approach in life in general, looking as well. So on that there yoga fitted in perfectly because yoga was in that moment much less of the practical physically part.
Mm.
It was understanding how how we work as a human being, how we talk to ourselves, and this is why I was interested in. And they had such a wide, yes, they're so different. We have one teacher for breath work, one teacher just for the physical asana part. We have one, and she was amazing, Kali Raquel. She has like three doctor titles, and she knows Sanskrit, and she speaks like eight languages or something. And she lived in India for so long, and but she could explain like the most complex part of the Indian philosophy in a language that I could understand, you know. And then we had another one for the positive psychology and the relaxation. So it was such, yeah, it was a life changer. It was for me not just the tr teacher training, and this is why. But at the end of the first year, I noticed I want more, and I had the feeling already I wanted to start to give.
Yeah.
To share this. And then I started, funny enough, with my first online student in lockdown. And we're still going. We still see us twice a week. So
Oh, that's beautiful. It is it's a full circle experience, isn't it? When you
it
come to it
is.
for a reason and then you feel so driven to share those tools that you've learned to help yourself with other people.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and it's obviously why you're such a fit for the studio because it sounds like our teacher trainings were pretty similar in the way that there was a lot of psychology, there's a lot of philosophy, and so it's designed to kind of transform your way of seeing the world rather than just
Yeah.
get better at yoga poses. But there are those trainings out there which are very asana focused, and that's great, pose focused, but that's just what I think what you feel in the studio is this like philosophy of what life is about and this non-harm and non-judgment and acceptance. And that feels like
Yeah.
this common theme that we all have in common, which is amazing. So, because obviously when I do the teacher trainings and the teachers come in the studio, I've been on the training, I know what their biggest battle was during the training. So like for mine, and it's interesting because our stories feel similar in the way that we both lost our dads and then we came to yoga, but we've both got young children, we've got boys, Lennox and Lenny. Like it's
Yeah.
really interesting. There's lots of overlap. My biggest learning on my teacher training was about perfectionism at the time. Like I was living a life for my dad's approval. I wanted to make him proud, so I was doing the typical like London city thing. He then and disappeared. He passed away. And so I had to try and figure out kind of like who I was and what I liked and to see the world in a kinder, less judgmental, less critical, like less threatening way, really. And that's what yoga gave me. So was that similar for you? What was your biggest outtake from your training?
I would say definitely because after the yoga teacher training, I never went back to like a work relation where I was just employed. I decided exactly this a little bit. I want to have a life driven much more by my values, by what's really kind of important to me, and this is not being kind of in the hamster wheel. I didn't necessarily had this, my dad, I mean, bless him, he would be 104 this year. So he was as well in an age, I could have let him go. And he was always trying as well to kind of make me happy. So I had this from his side as well, that he always said, you don't need to, be a certain way to be accepted. But funny enough, many often when I doubted myself, when I was thinking, yeah, but can I really do it? Because of course there is still this voice, but yeah, you need security, if you don't, so, and there I think it was more my father, and I felt his presence very strong, that he said, no, follow your heart, you
Mm.
know.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
I think this is as well what I try as well to bring into my classes. And my biggest learning is that our life is way too short to waste it in a job that we don't like, in a relationship where we're not happy, that whatever it is, you can change it if you want to. You can work on yourself, but the most important bit, find out who you truly are. Not try to fulfill a picture or not try to please somebody else. Find out what's working for yourself.
Yeah,
So,
such
yeah.
an important message. And we all come to it at different times, don't we, for different reasons. But that's what we're trying to infuse in our yoga classes. And I think that's where people can get so confused about what yoga is. Like it's not a stretch class, right? We're using these poses to like notice ways of being in ourselves, notice those doubts. When we approach a challenging pose, do we just decide that we can't do it before we even try? That self-doubt, can we learn to step over it by practicing these poses that we might think we can't do? On the other hand, as well, we're not there to compete, we're not there to achieve, we're not there to perform, we're doing it for ourselves. And maybe the self development, the growth within ourselves is actually taking the easy option. That was a big one for me. It was like, look, don't worry about it. Like rest
Yeah.
and try easy and see how it would live, how it would be living in a try easy state. I mean, that was just an alien concept to me. The idea
Yeah.
that life could be easier and you could love it and you could just be authentic to you and you can actually have a like life that you like rather than that you have to do, right? And that's what yoga's teaching us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think absolutely you're right. And sometimes this kind of less is more, We don't have to do this. Sometimes I even said, do you have to? Do you really must?
Mm.
So even now I start seeing in my practice, I might be able, and even I have lots of poses, for example, that I can't do, and I'm fine with it. At some point I wanna prove it. But I encourage this very, very often as well, the students, even if you're able to do X, Y, Z, try today not to play with it differently and it kind of bring the gaze inwards because this is as well the same in life sometimes. How much are we sometimes wind up by a conversation or something that we heard or a good example I think is in the traffic. I always ask like what kind of driver are you? Are you going that's or I can kind of lay back, switch the music on and then let things happen to you. And that's sometimes the same I think is as well for me in the yoga classes. Come every time with a curious mind and an open heart and see what comes. Leave this expectation behind and live the moment. Feel what you need right now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, right now.
Yeah, so perfectly put, Jules. So just to end, is there a book that you would recommend? I always think that's a nice thing for someone to kind of share what's taught you, or even a couple, some of the most influential books on your journey.
Oh, there are a few. I mean, one fun enough, if you even read it in English, it's called The Midnight Library. It's
Okay.
pretty much about yeah, personal development much more other than for example yoga. It's a very, very cool book that puts you a little bit into place to that every decision matters, every moment matters, exactly what we are just talking about. You're not stuck in a bubble if you can change this. Um, but well, right now as well, I read a very good book, but I mean, of course, they're all in German, so it's very difficult to just name the titles.
Yeah.
But my books that help me even during the yoga and help me now, it's very much about exactly this kind of self-development, acceptance. I read a few as well about breath work because I think the power of breath is as well something. Yes, we read books, of course, in the teacher training. I have a few even somehow down here.
As if
I mean, of course, I mean there is the classical, of course, that we I think all know at some point is the Bhagavad Gita.
we're.
But there as well, I had some struggles. Now the other ones, I think they're down in the garage. Because these are books, and there's another one, The Tree of Life and the Tree of the Light of Yoga from Yin Yang, which even if you're not 100% into yoga, but their approach on life, I
Mm.
think it's beautiful. And even there, I needed to find a few because the one that we had during the teacher training, it always depends on the interpretation of the
Yeah.
author. And we had the Spanish one. He was for me a little bit too philosophical, too kind of, and then again in Spanish, I couldn't understand the word. And I found this and this makes it so much more understanding. And this is a book I always come back to. It's not kind of you read it from the back to front. So Yeah, but for me, it's this everything that kind of brings you a transformation. This is what I think read my literature for the last at least decade. Everything that kind of helps me to become more and more the person I want to be, somehow this kind of connection to my true self.
I love that. Well, Jules, thank you. And so let people know, where can they find you for your teaching?
Well, they can find me in the Soul Sanctuary studio, of course. Every Thursday night, I teach at 7:15. There might be some changes for my Friday night classes. I have there in, every other Friday as well, so every fortnight at 7:15 as well. But I think we right now, anyway, in the process of
Okay.
adapting these classes.
But they're live streamed as well, aren't they? So people can join online. And you teach online as well, right, yourself?
I do teach online, yes. Even though right now what I have is only one-to-one students, so I have private students that I work with, and I'm building up online courses as well. Unfortunately, this is everything is in German for now.
For now. But
So, whoever would like to learn German and yoga, well, sign up.
yeah. Or
Sign
as
up.
well, share this with your German audience because it's nice for them to hear about your story. So it's good just to let everyone know where to find you. But yeah, we're
Yeah.
very lucky to have you. Very proud to say that you're part of the studio. And yeah, come and see
Thank
Jules
you
very,
so
very
much.
soon. Thank you, Jules.